Hi guys, how you doing? And welcome to my channel, Claire Thackeray. Today is the 23rd of November 2022. I'm going to keep saying a lot. Today's video is one that's been brewing for a while, but been brewing mainly since I did the Peter Sutcliffe one. And that was a good success, a roaring success. So this is going to be the next one that we're going to be doing. And the meaning of this video and the aim of this video is not to go down the rabbit holes. It's not going to be about who done it. It's not going to be about who else was involved, what they did, what he said, she said, they said. Let's go darker. It's going deeper, but it's not going darker, okay? Because there's a whole load of stuff out there about certain things within our world, about abuse within our world. The whole purpose of this video, and this week it's been weird, it's been a weird old week. I've toed and froed with how to do it. I've toed and froed with what to call it, because the fact that I'm going to be channeling Jimmy Savile, the name itself, the picture, the persona, still does draw in a lot of negativity, a lot of toxicity, a lot of vitriol, and a lot of other people's unhealed stuff. I want to put a disclaimer at the beginning, but I kind of don't, because I actually want people to watch this. I want those to watch it that want to heal, whether you're a victim of abuse, whether you're a victim of the abuse of, I will now on call him JS. I don't want to keep repeating certain words through this video, okay? So JS. So whether you're a victim of Jimmy or JS, or whether you're a victim of somebody else. Because the thing is as well, when we're going to be looking at his soul contracts, one of the things that Jimmy was sent as a soul contract was to actually not just highlight the abuse that he did, but also others. And it was the same with me. When his case is broke, it then triggered me and also millions and thousands of others to step forward, not necessarily about the abuse that he did, but the abuse of others. And actually, out of anyone that's ever worked in charity or ever tried to illuminate the world, nobody has actually succeeded in doing what he did. And please don't be triggered by that, because actually we're dealing with a multidimensional human being, as we are all multidimensional human beings. And we are all made of light and dark, many shades of grey, many shades of the rainbow, many shades of evil, many shades of celestial, many shades of galactic. There is everything within us. And we're going to be going into that in a little bit more detail later. So I want people to be respectful in the comments as well, as the vast majority of you are, but now and again we get a little bit of controversy goes on. I'm going to think with YouTube you can do a thing with the comments where you don't switch them off, but you check them before you post them. So I will check them before they get posted. Apologies, it's not about my subscribers, it's about the outside world. Because actually what I don't want this to turn into is a witch hunt, because I would not do this if we were going to sit down here and just get darker and darker and darker. And there is a difference between going darker and deeper. We're going to be going deeper, okay? I'm going to go into his numerology in a minute and his dates of birth. A brief outline, again, who Jimmy was. DJ, philanthropist, charity worker, based in the UK, hugely famous in the times that he lived. Lived and died in Leeds, Yorkshire born and bred. Absolutely, and it was like when he passed over, it was like some higher up figure had died, yeah? And pomp and ceremony and outpouring of grief, etc., especially in the Yorkshire areas. And then within, I think it was within days and weeks, things started to, I mean, things had already been trying to come out about the abuse. I'm going to try and avoid it if I can, because I don't want to go down that route for obvious reasons. And it just like skyrocketed. If you want to research him, say if you're international, do you think Jimmy Savile? I would recommend, I mean, this is the book that I've been reading this week. Okay, I'm going to hold it up. I'm not going to read out the title. I'm just going to hold it up. I'll put it in the description, but what I'll do is I'll miss certain letters of his name out, but I'm just holding that up. So if you want to research him, I'd read that. It's not a book that you sit down and have a cosy read. It's not a book that you, well, if you, I wouldn't go and sit this book. I wouldn't go and read this book if you're just going, oh, none of that. If you want to learn about it, if you want to make sense of it, if you're a parent I advise any parents that watch me, whether you're the parents of young children, whatever you're, especially the parent of teenagers, or the parent of anyone, because there is going to be a bit in this video about parenting, because I was actually shocked at the amount of parents that actually enabled it. This book has blown me. I mean, the book is by, I won't even mention it, okay? So that's the book, and I'll put it in the description, but I'll take out certain letters. You just got to do it. I'm sorry, apologies. And that's another reason why I don't want to go down, because I don't want to spend the rest of this video having to talk in code and winking and nodding. I can't stand that energy anymore. Right, so he was born James Wilson Vincent Savile, born 31st of October 1926, died 29th of October 2011, so we're over 10 years since his passing. His numerology is 32, and this is, bear with me, balance, harmony, success that's led to a peaceful solution in every situation, adventure, love of adventure, and adventurous spirit. Now, I know those of you that know the character that I'm on about know that I said character. You're thinking, God, it was, but it wasn't. And this was someone that was coming to the earth to show us how to balance our emotions, how to balance the darkness within us, how to find harmony within us when the world was incredibly dark. And the success that leads to a peaceful solution is the fact that we were shown this scenario in our world, and we had many different timelines off that as a species. We either went into blame, shame, victimhood, or we went into empowerment and self-empowerment, and we chose it as an opportunity to rise. We got to choose. So 3 and 2 is 4, 5, which 5, I didn't write that down. 5 represents Mercury and the senses that we have. These people are usually beautiful, I'm going to come to that, and have a charismatic aura, fun to be around. He did have a charismatic aura, and he was, for some, fun to be around. One of the things he was talking to me about this morning, because he's been in and out all week, was that he absolutely hated how he looked. And that was why he dressed as he dressed, because he absolutely detested, this is the word I'm getting. And he said to me it was almost like a form of self-harm to dress as, like, again, for the international clients, watchers, clients, followers, Google him. I mean, I can't get any pictures of him because I'm on my phone at the minute before I go onto my camera. But yeah, he absolutely dressed in an outlandish way. He was an outlandish figure. He was loud. He could be incredibly funny, and he actually could bring a lot of fun to a situation away from the abuse. And that's why many people liked him. One of the things he also said this morning was that the reason for that was he actually had an inferiority complex. That I'm gonna go in about what happened at the passing as well and why we've come to this stage, but I'm having to flow with what comes. So he had an inferiority complex, and that was one of the reasons why he was a loud, proud, sometimes vocally aggressive person, antagonistic, and that was covering up an absolutely destroyed human being at the core centre. And this isn't an excuse, this is trying to describe him as a person. Yes, 31st of October, he was born on Halloween, which, yes, was no accident. He came in on a storm, I'm hearing. He was birthed in darkness. He was conceived in darkness. And one of the reasons why he came to this planet was to show us how dark we had become. How dark we had become as a species. How dark we had become as an industry, how dark we had become as a world, and how ghoulish we'd become. So he came in on the 31st with all the other ghouls, he's saying. And 29th, he died just before, I'm going really icy cold here. If I've been a little bit like that's why. He died on the 29th of October, which was just before the 31st, obviously. And it feels as though this is significant of a cycle. He came for a cycle. And the cycle was cut short because the cycle isn't done yet. And from that, he means that there is still more to come in other areas, okay? And I don't want to go any further. He achieved what he wanted to do in this lifetime. So moving on. Now, I have got loads of notes. I've taken numerology for his passing as well. Self-awareness, this is for us. So these are using the dates of his death, and this is for us. 25 I got. Self-awareness, initiation, interest in nearly everything. Interest in nearly everything. What did I mean by that? Self-awareness, initiation, and interest in nearly everything. The self-awareness was the death, obviously, him dying and everything coming out. So that was our self-awareness, and it was an initiation process. Most of us, including myself, went into anger and vitriolic and all kinds of things because that was where we were as a species. Some people are still there. I then got the number of 7, which is Ascension, a life free of obstacles. How fitting, you get to choose. So obviously the numbers of his death became number 7, and that was Ascension, a life free of obstacles. This is for us and also for him as well. So this was part of the Ascension process. This was part of the Global Awakening. He was a part of the Global Awakening, and this is about us being free of our obstacles, which will go into obstacles over how we view entertainment and everything, how we view abuse. Self-awareness and initiation, untested, I don't know what I've written there. I'm just going to stick to self-awareness. Okay, now I've written loads of notes. Look at my little notes I've got. And you're going to have to bear with me on this because he's been giving me updates all week. And I'm going to try not to be as rude as I can and looking down all the time. Before I go any further, how this started for me was I was born in Leeds, like Jimmy, lived very close to where Jimmy was born, lived where he lived, where he died, etc. And I remember as a child, it must have been in the 80s, where I used to have a nana that lived in Motown, which was near to him. And he used to do a lot of running, a lot of marathons, so he'd be running around Leeds, certain parts of Leeds, especially around the Roundhay area. And my dad, because nobody knew back then, waved to Jimmy. That was a big thing. So he used to wave to Jimmy, and us 3 kids in the backseat waved to Jimmy, and Jimmy used to wave back. And he had that kind of aura that really like pulled you in, but it was like, I don't know. I think he was meant to have that aura because I think that the aura that he came in with was to show us something that we needed to heal, if that makes sense. And then when I started doing my shaman, obviously he died in 2011, and I started doing my shamanic training, and I started to have these dreams where I'd leave my home in Leeds at the time, and then I'd travel halfway between Leeds and where he lived in Roundhay, and we would meet at a mutual place. And in these dreams, I remember being quite upset because he wasn't the Jimmy that I thought he'd be. As in, he wasn't the dark, ghoulish, eccentric abuser that we've been shown. That's not saying that he wasn't, he was, but this was the soul essence. I've come to understand recently that this was the soul essence, and maybe tied into some of this work that I'm having to do in this video. And in it, he gave me some downloads, which I'm not going to share, about other things that were going on. And I remember just feeling this amount of healing, as though somehow I can't even remember what he said. He just used to give me this information, and I used to get such healing from it. And no, I'm not a ghoulish character. And no, I wasn't a fan of Jimmy. In fact, I was one of the few in Leeds, I believe, that didn't even honour his death. I didn't know why at the time. I just felt disgusted by it all, and he's aware of that as well. So yes, and then it was kept coming, these dreams, not all the time. It's not actually an awful energy. It's not an awful soul essence. It's not a dark soul essence, so it doesn't feel dark. And then obviously I said no, it was this year before I moved house, that we were talking about what makes us bad, what makes us dark, and I said something like jokingly, maybe I should channel some dark characters to understand it. And we've done one so far, and we're doing Jimmy now. So, childhood illness, head spinning, entity, church. That's what I've written. He had a childhood illness, and there's lots of different views about this and lots of different stories about this. But one of the stories is that he was outside the shop in his pushchair, and the pushchair started to shake, and it toppled over, and apparently his head spun round. Now, you know I'm a shamanic practitioner. You know that shamanism, shamanic practitioners, we take off entities. I believe at this point something stepped into Jimmy. And most people have entities, but not many people have. Well, I'm being okay, fair enough. He says you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. Okay, fair enough. I'll take that. That entities. It was probably demonic, because demonic is into this kind of stuff. Yeah. I'm just having to watch what I say as well, because I put churchgoers. And yeah, I believe there was stuff there that I think he was also the victim of something. He's very, very protective of that, like anybody that would have gone through that. And that may trigger what when it is abuse. Why do we're talking about soul essence. So then he gave me a download of, the weird thing is, he's had me writing stuff all week. It's not, he was bossy in lifetime, but as a spirit, he's not bossy. It's just sometimes some of the blueprint can come through. And I found out that apparently he was like that with his secretaries, that if you were a secretary of Jimmy, it was a full-time job. He was your sole attention. And at one point I had to say, Jimmy, I can't work like this. I can't just keep writing stuff down all the time, because it's just notes and notes and notes of it. And he backed off a bit because he understood that he can't be that person anymore, when he was like, write this down. It was never nasty with it to me. So let me read this. Right, this is what he said. He says that there is an energy out there that abuses. I'm going to use the word abuser rather than the word P-E-A-D. Okay? Oh. There's a theme out there, a belief that being like that is because you were attracted to younger. Yeah? So it's a bit like saying, I'm gay, I'm straight, I like men, I like women, I like both, okay? And now they're trying to say that you can actually just like children. And he's saying that's false. He's saying that doesn't exist, and that is not what being an abuser is all about. He's saying that being an abuser is a form of control and manipulation. It is a form of anger. It is not about being attracted to the person that is on the receiving end. In fact, far from it. It's more like a form of, what's the word? Repulsion. He says abusers are really, when you take on the soul contract of an abuser, it's a huge, the whole thing of abuse and the soul and soul contracts and the karmic clearing, etc. is huge. And he was also abused. He's going to talk about his generational trauma stuff. So that needs to be scribbled out. Anyone that's promoting that, be mindful. He actually said anyone that you hear talking like that, that it's just like being straight or it's just like being that. It's not. It's got nothing to do with fancying, being attracted to. It's got everything to do with being angry, arrogant, determined, ruthless, abusive, abused, demonic, and all kinds of things. He says it's a form of control. He says actually people that do that thing, that kind of thing, like he did in that lifetime, actually have no perception and conception of feelings. They don't have the feelings that and he would very brazenly say he had no feelings. He'd switched his feelings off. He came down from a very unfeeling bloodline. Both bloodlines that he came down were just so unfeeling. They were a cold, callous, brutal family. And he's had to do a lot of healing with that in relation to people in his family, particularly the mother wound. And I've got boundaries with the mother stuff with him. I did have a few days ago. Whether he wants to go into that now, I don't know. It's not about sex. It is about control and power, a bit like RAPE of an adult. It's the same. It's not about being attracted. It's not about the fact she was wearing a short skirt and she was attractive and I just couldn't stop myself. It's about control and power, and we must bear that in mind. So if you are the victim of it, it wasn't because your skirt was too short, it wasn't because you were promiscuous, it wasn't because it's an act of control. Okay, yeah, I'll see if we've just said that. He said if you go into a library, say we're all a library, say it's like the X-shaped record, so each one of us has a library. He actually said to me, we all have this aspect of the abuser within us. And I was like, really? He said, yes, everybody has that fragment of the abuser within them, be it the physical, including the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the SEXUL. Yeah, okay, sorry, I have to spell. And I said, explain, Jimmy, explain that. So you're saying we're all abusers? Yes. Bear with me, do not slam the door shut. We all have the potential to be the abuser, right? Because this is from past lives, present lives, our life that we're in now, other lives and future lives. As a soul, you come down to experience it all. I can't go into the ins and outs in this video because it will make it too long. I will look at this segment in another one, okay? Going further with this. We've had past lives of being and experiencing everything. This is Earth School. No, it doesn't make it right, but it makes it what the human experience is about. And the awakening that we're going through now is where we're starting to dismantle all of that. Many of us as souls, all souls, have got to a point where they've thought, we cannot do this anymore. We can't keep going on to that round orb, earthy thing and being these different characters enough. And now this is what the awakening's about. The wave of souls that are going to choose in their own divine timing. And it's going to take years to actually better themselves. We don't have to be the abuser. And this is about healing those fragments. So you may have been an abuser in 1717. So that fragment stays inside you. The fragment of the lifetime that you were the rich aristocratic lady in the Victorian times. The fragment that you maybe were a vagabond, or that you, and the fragment of all the countries that you've lived in, and all the colours that we've been, and all the religions that we've been, and all the jobs that we've been, and all the good, the bad, the ugly and the beautiful, is all kept within the blueprint of the energy field and the soul and the higher self. And we have choice of what we nurture. We either nurture the good stuff or we nurture the bad stuff. And what he's saying about, we might say, well, he had a choice. Why did he choose that? When we, and then the soul contracts as well, which make it even more complicated. So we have choice. So it's about us actually making a decision. This is all part of the awakening as well. Whether we embrace the darkness or we embrace the light. And he says, when you start to sense this darkness within you, it could it doesn't have to be about abuse. It can be any form of darkness. Maybe you're angry, maybe you're ratty, maybe you've got addictions, maybe you like one-night stands, maybe you like shouting at people, maybe you can't find a successful job and staying, or whatever your darkness is. Nip it in the bud straight away. You're saying, nip it in the bud. Get healing straight away. Because it just spirals and spirals and spirals and spirals. Heal it. Face it. He's also saying, those of you that know people that have darkness, especially of the abuser, it is your job to try to help. And this isn't about throwing them to the dragons. He's saying throwing them to the dragons. Throwing them in the dungeon. This is actually about understanding them. And he's saying that services. He's saying there are so many intelligent people in the world. Medics, psychologists, counsellors, therapists, charity workers that have huge gifts that could actually come to the table and actually help this and help people that are going through this. And he says, and if you trace it all back, we've all been abused. He's been abused. I've been abused. You've been abused. And he's saying, if you trace it back and back and back, you will find that everybody's been abused and then it all traces back to that abuse. He says, one event starts it and it starts to feed the darkness within you, and then it's darkness on top of, a bit like a snowball effect that I talk about on here, where it gets bigger and it gets bigger and it gets bigger. How do you deal with people, your loved ones and GS, that are abusers? Talk to them. Sit with them. Disown them if you need to. Report them. Teach them when they're younger not to be. So many parents feed the darkness in children because it suits them, as my mother did to me. So many parents want the perfect child and are turning away at the darkness that's coming out early doors. So many parents want the perfect family. They've got the perfection goggles on. It's in the perfection goggles. My child's perfect, my life's perfect. That they can't see what's happening beneath their own nose. whistle blow, whistle blow, whistle blow, whistle blow. He said, this isn't just about families, this is about friends, about work colleagues, so many people. Shh, shh. He says, we intimidated as abusers, we as in him. And he said, don't let that intimidation, because actually the abuser, so I've got flashing lights, the abuser is more scared of you, the whistleblower. The abuser is more scared of you, the whistleblower. He said ultimately what stops abuse is love. When you have a child, love it, nurture it, empower it, protect it, but not smother it. Show it love, show it light. And keep filling each other with love. He says we're all empty vessels. Every single one of us is an empty vessel, and you either fill it with love or you fill it with the devil. And many of us have chosen to fill it with the devil, and many are choosing to fill it with love, and many are not even sure what they want to fill it with. Fill it with love. I need some water. You all right? I'm trying my best to be as... I'm trying my best with this video, okay? And I've got some controversial subjects, but I want to also say, because one of the things I was going to say before I started going to the channeling bit, he has actually healed, or he's on his healing journey. He is very different to the Jimmy that we remember. He showed me his passing. I think he showed me over the past few days. He was very isolated at the end, very lonely, and very... In fact, when I went to meditate early before I came on, and my tablet wouldn't work, and I had to sit there in silence, and that's what it was with him. He was on his own. And it was silent. The silence was deadly. And he went, he died. And then your guides come in. And your guides and loved ones come to take you over, and he wouldn't go over. It was anchored for quite some time. Until in the end, his mother had to come. And his mother and guides had to then take him over. When he got there, he showed me, I've talked about this before. I think it was in the, I'm going cold again. I talked about this in the Whitney video where I said there's a hospital, I don't really use the word hospital, it's a castle of healing, a place of healing in heaven, the other side, where he actually showed me what it's, he's actually showed me fragments of heaven that anybody else that I've channeled has not been able to show me. And yes, there is no there is no hell. There is no hell. Anyone that believes in hell or tells you there's a hell, they're bullshitting you. It's a form of control. Everyone goes to heaven, no matter what you've done, okay? And you may go to different places, you may go through the different doors, you may have certain different paths up there, you may have certain areas, you know, we have soul contracts to sit with your spirit team, but everyone goes to heaven. So he showed me they took him over, and because of the guilt and the pain of that lifetime and the abuse that he suffered as well, he said they had to knock him out energetically. So they, as in the light beings, your angels, your galactics, his spirit team, his higher self. So he was actually, it was a bit like, it's a bit like me name, what's it called? Intensive care, but intensive energetic care, if that makes sense, because it was so vitrolic, it would have caused more damage to an already fragmented energy. So they knocked him out. And whilst he was knocked out, he was healing. He was able to go to a place and heal without the noise of what was going on planet Earth, UK. And then as he came to, it was like, you know, when you've been on holiday and you come back and everything feels a bit weird, it was like that. And it took him time to, then he started to sit with his spirit team, and they went through the soul contracts, which is private to him, so I'm not going to go into it. They went into the karmic clearance, the teaching, what every one of us that dies goes through. And then he started to investigate heaven, and I didn't actually know that he was actually really into the God stuff and the Jesus stuff. And he actually, I mean, he showed me going to a lot of the classes that Jesus has up in heaven. I can't even put it into words. And he actually said to me, he says, don't worry, Claire, he says, there are billions of books in heaven, because he knows I'm a bookworm. And he says, billions of books, and there's so much teaching and learning and no judgment. And this, bring it into your own life. Whatever you've done in your life, whatever pain you've caused, and it may not necessarily be the type that he did in his lifetime, you can heal. And you can, when you die and you pass over, there is no judgment, there is just love. And he says that's the difference between here and there. He was never allowed to heal here because we, as the watchers, kept on feeding the freak show, kept on feeding the freak show. Even people around him that could have stopped it, and people did try to stop it, but actually the freak show was kept going and kept going. He's actually saying he should have been sectioned, but he says even then sectioning is some of the worst things you can do to someone, because obviously he's working Broadmoor, which we're not going to go into. I mean, yeah, sectioning. He says even that's not the answer, sectioning someone, locking somebody up. What is the answer then, Jimmy? He's just saying love. People around that could have stopped him, because he's saying there were periods where he was just off his head. And when you're the abuser, this isn't him making an excuse, when you're the abuser, you've just got this darkness that's just pumping, pumping, pumping. It's actually the responsibility of those around. It's a bit like, say you go out on a night out with your friends, and one of your friends gets plastered and they can't walk home. Now, are you going to be the friend that says, you know what, I'm going to sit with her, I'm going to go home in the taxi with her, I'm going to take her to her door, and I'm going to make sure she gets in? Or I'm going to make sure whoever is waiting for her gets her in and everything's fine? Or are you going to be the one that goes, okay, let her, she got pissed up so she can sort herself out? He says again, when people are having these mental episodes, these psychotic episodes, these episodes of that he was, rather than actually helping, it's like they feed it. And I can't go too deeply into it. It's all about energies and the different energies that people carry. Yeah. Are you still with me? So we've covered that. What time are we on? God, age 12. He was actually abused as a child, age 12. He actually went on his first day, age 12, with a woman that was in her 20s. And apparently there's also a story where he was on a train as a child, and the woman on a train carried out an act of abuse on him as a child. So we come on to, when you have any kind of physical contact with anybody, there is a transference of energy. And usually that's fine. But what we must also remember is, if you have an experience with someone that has issues, that can pass on. We pick up energetic debris from those that we, yes, even if it's consensual and healthy and loving and whatever, that's just how it is. And usually we just get that debris off because it's just normal every day, but it's also something to be mindful of. So if you are a victim of abuse and something happens, that energetic debris of the abuser comes on. And that is something that he's saying about healing. As a parent, if your child comes to you and says, Mummy, Daddy, something's happened, instantly get them healed. Get them on a path of healing, of empowerment, because otherwise that energetic debris that goes on can actually start to fester and fester and fester. I mean, when I actually read that in the book, that he was age 12 when he went on his first date with a woman in her 20s, it's just unbelievable. And again, this comes down to parenting. You know, imagine being the parent whose son comes in, his 12-year-old son comes in and says, I'm off my first date tonight, Mummy, or Daddy, or whatever. Who is it? I mean, really, why should a 12-year-old be dating anyway? Let's, you know, what is happening in society? And that's one of the things he came to show us about how, he's saying how crippled we have become energetically. Sorry for the terminology. In fact, I'm not sorry. How crippled we have become as a society to actually not question that. I mean, you know, to go on a date at a 12-year-old, where's the parental guidance there? Right, we had a dream. I had a dream where I went into a dental surgery. Now, I'll explain. I went to a dental surgery for a dental appointment in this dream. And I got in there, the dentist was JS. And I walked in and I went, eh? Isn't he dead? And the nurses and everybody else in the practice were like, and nobody seemed fazed by it. And I went, okay, I laid down and he was doing treatment. Dental treatment, there was nothing darker about it. It was all dental treatment. And I kept going back and it kept getting me back shorter, and like, you know, it's meant to be 6 to 12 months for a dental checkup. It was like once every week. It was weird. And I actually, the last visit I had in this dream, I actually took my husband with me. And I said, there's something not right here. So I walked in and I laid down again. And he says, can you sign this? And it was like for dockets for treatment that he said I'd had, that I'd not. And I was like, wait a minute, JS. I've not had this treatment. I said, you're pulling a fast one. And I just stood up and I went, everybody, This is wrong. Why is he even here? He's dead. He's an abuser. You know, why is he here? What's happening? And the assistant in there started to cry. Please don't say anything, I'll lose my job. And everybody was like that. And I went, wait a minute, I'm me. I'm a mouthy northerner, and this is wrong, this is wrong. And I'm saying, this is wrong. And I walked out into the waiting room and I said, this is wrong, everybody, this is wrong. And I woke up like that, and I went, God, Jimmy, that was awful. Because I worked in a dental environment, and that's where I experienced my trauma. And I went, Jimmy, you've gone too far there. Why did you show me that? I don't like dentistry stuff, which shows my own healing that needs to be done. And he said, I was trying to show you what was happening at the time without showing you the abuse, Claire. I was trying to be kind. If you'd have dreamt of him, JS, as an abuser in a medical setting, that would have been horrific. So I was trying to show you it, but in a way that you would understand. And I was like, oh, yes, you were. So, many people, yes, knew. Let's not go there. Many people could have said something and didn't say something. Let's not go there. For the fair few that did, well done. And you know what? Take this into your own lives away from the Jimmy thing. As a victim of something or as an observer, sometimes you're not heard. Okay, we're not going to go into details. Sometimes you're not heard. That's okay. You may not be heard straight away, but energy hears you. And your karma hears you. Your karma hears you. So if you've reported your own stuff or somebody else's stuff or something you've worked with or whatever, and nothing's happened, know that you have a clean conscience. He said you have a clean conscience. But he's also saying it just takes one person to shout louder. And it does actually cause, it pulsates, he showed me this week, it pulsates energy out to other people. And you may all be speaking up and voicing your opinions and nothing may be happening. But actually, that's actually helping to build the rising. And he said, throughout all those years that people were trying to be heard over what was happening, it was actually building up the momentum. So when it did come, boom, it came big. I mean, go research, if you're international, you're not sure who he is, go research it, because, oh my God, he toppled it. He toppled the tower big time. And I know there's still stuff to come, but yeah. Dealing with our eccentric, I can't even say the word eccentric. Dealing with our eccentric behaviours. And we gave me this last week and I was like, well, I can't say to people you can't be eccentric, because individuality, JS, you can't say that to people. And he explained it this morning beautifully. There's a difference between eccentric and eccentric. There's differences. If you look at him as a character, how he dressed, how he acted, how he treated people, he was eccentric. And he actually said it was an act of self-loathing. It was an act of self-abuse because he hated what he saw in the mirror. He says to behave like that, to dress like he did. There's a difference between, say if I came on here tomorrow and I dyed all my hair orange, I dyed all my hair orange and I had it all spiked up, right? And I came on, I had tattoos all over my neck and my face, and I came in and I'd done all kinds of other crazy stuff. There's an issue. There's a problem. It's not something to be revered. It's not some individuality. There's an issue. And he says this is a problem within the world at the minute, where it's a form of abuse of the self because they don't love who they are. So they're destroying who they are in various ways, shapes or form. So, and he also said about being outlandish and loud, and people that go in and they go into a room and they're the loudest and the proudest in the room is actually covering up a bottle of deep insecurities, deep insecurities. So yes, you can be the eccentric that has 5 cats and I don't know, whatever. But there's a fine line, and there's a fine line that I think we need to learn about and heal within us, because actually one of the things he's saying, eccentric behaviour can lead you down dark portals within your own mind. The mind has portals within it, and you can choose the light portals or the dark portals. He's also saying that when you do and behave in these ways, you actually push a lot of decent people away from you, because decent people that are living good, honest, humble, wholesome lives with wholesome family lives and wholesome love around them go, ooh, or they actually become ostracized from family, from workspaces. So it's about dealing with the eccentric behaviour before it becomes debilitating, and also acknowledging that in some cases, like with his, it can be a form of self-harm of the body. He said he just felt totally ugly all the time, ugly. Saying if you could see the real Jimmy, the Jimmy that is there now, and the Jimmy that I'm talking to is so much more different to the Jimmy, he nearly said the abused Jimmy that was loud and proud and causing havoc, and he said like a wrecking ball. He said, but then the soul contract needed to be fulfilled also. And this is why lives are so complex. We've got the karma we had to clear. We've got the soul contracts. We've got the lessons we needed to learn. And we have those, when you choose to become a global figure, you also get a whole new global stuff as well. So, Dancing in the Dark. Dancing in the Dark lyrics, he gave me those last week. I'm not sure about that. I'll come back to that in part 2. Yes, the last, it was this week, wasn't it? I'm going to look what time I've got. Am I going to go to the next video? Or should I carry on, see how far we get with this? Sorry, I'm just talking to Jimmy. I was having breakfast and a family walked past, and they were on the way to school. It was 5 little kids, and all of a sudden I wanted to cry. And I am not a crier. It's issues. I struggle. I'm not a crier, and I get perturbed by criers. Criers scare me. This is me, Claire, talking, right? And so for me to sit and have a breakfast and see some children have this, when I wanted to actually sob, and I went, "What's this?" And I went, "Jimmy, this isn't me, is it?" I went, "It's you." And I actually had a vision of him looking out of my window at the children, and he was actually crying. And one of the things he was saying, I cannot believe what I did. And that he was disgusted in what he did, because when we actually looked at the children, they had just pure innocence about them. The little legs, and I mean, I don't want to trigger people. No, got to honest, open conversations. The little bobble hats and the little backpacks, and even now thinking about it, and the pain and the emotion and the heartbreak that I actually felt in the energy that is JS in that moment, and I felt it myself, was off the scale. And that's important to know as well, that I hate the word, I'm not going to use the word repentant and all that, because that's just diabolical language. It's not about being repentant or just desserts or, you know, it's about something way more deeper than that. It's about something way more deeper than that. It's about that we heal. There's healing no matter who you are, what you've done, there is healing there. And the minute you put your hand up to source, to the higher self, to your Godhead, to your guides, to your ancestors, your angels, your galactics of light, the minute they come in, no matter what you've done, and you can do this during life, you can do this during your death process, your transition process. And that's one of the things why he wants to do this video. He said, because there's a lot of dark on that planet that's even worse than him, okay? And it may not always be about their abusers, because let's not think that just to be an abuser is a dark thing. It is, obviously, but there's other aspects of darkness within us all, and we need to heal it, because what he's also saying is it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it consumes you. Not selling your soul for money, right? Not selling your soul for money, yeah. So money and power, which obviously he lived and played in. Standing for integrity. Not selling your soul for money, not selling your soul. I can't say anything because I don't want to lose this big job, and I'm a big CEO of this big company, and I don't want to lose my job. Or I'm the nurse, or I'm the this, or I'm the porter, or I'm the whatever it is. No, do not sell your soul for money. And that's another thing, one of his soul, we'll look more of his soul contracts in part 2. But that's one of the big things of not selling your soul for money. To have integrity. To have love, 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 love. I haven't felt like I had it in my voice then. Love, 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 love. Always. He was saying they were just selling their souls. He actually despises, not as he is now, he's showing me as he was then. And he's in this room, and there's just all these backhanders, and it's all just, and he's looking round, and he just despises people. He hated people. For although he was a charity, he wants me to come to that in another segment of this series, but yeah, So 444, did you see that? Anyway, I love it when the angels give you numbers. So I'm going to leave it in this video now, and I'm going to go into part 2. Thank you for watching. See you later. Part 2 will do more channeling. I'm going to look at soul contracts. Thanks for watching. See you later. Goodbye.